Welcome back to another episode of Caps Off by the Game Day. It's Week 11 Fantasy Recaps Day. Hello, Felipe.
Oh my god. Yeah, that one's different. That's a new accent there. I appreciate it. Yo, it's our first time doing this fantasy episode remotely, so that's kind of cool. And then I guess that's why you brought out a new accent, or just because you do that every time.
I was just excited. In all honesty, there's something about like looking at my phone instead of looking at a camera or just like being home and not knowing what to do with my hands or like do I sit up? Like this
Yeah.
is such a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
aspect to what we've normally done. I also
Oh,
don't
it's
really like
different.
being this far from you. If I'm being completely honest, it feels a little weird. So
Yeah.
that's
There's
how
definitely
I
some
kind of
comfort.
feel.
Yeah, there's definitely some comfort in being right next to each other and being able to like touch each other, it like
Exactly.
non-sexually, but like just kind of
No,
like,
I mean, teach their own,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. But hey, week 12 is here. Me and you, bro, I'm hype about this upcoming week because I mean, first of all, our guys, Dalton Kincaid and Trey McBride, yeah, they're ready to splash, bro. I mean, they've been kind of splashing, but they're ready to really go. And then I've always talked about my guy, Zach Charbonnet.
Mm,
He's finally in his prime time situation. We've been waiting all year. We're like, he does have some standalone value with Kenneth Walker, but if Walker were to go down, Zach Charbonnet would skyrocket up the rankings, and it's
mm.
happening. So I'm excited. It's a good week.
It is definitely a good week. I sent you a tweet yesterday talking about a good week. It was about Trey McBride. And we've been very high on Trey McBride all year. We've also been very high, like you said, on Dalton Kincaid. In general, a lot of the guys that we've been high on, that I've been high on, finally had decent week this week. Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, as we've
Mm,
been talking about. Finally, a
mm,
week where some of these guys actually have been able to perform. And I want to talk about them, obviously, because anytime Calvin Ridley performs, it tends to happen every 10 weeks. So this shouldn't happen until next year again. So we're definitely going to talk about them. But I sent you that tweet yesterday about Trey McBride, and Trey McBride's role currently right now is the usage that you kind of find with like a wide receiver one. It's insane. Yesterday or Sunday, I would say he played 61 of 61 snaps, 37 routes on 38 Kyler Murray dropbacks, 7 targets at a 23.3% target share, 5 for 43 result. Obviously, the result wasn't equivalent to that of like how many snaps he played. But in the 4 games since Zach Ertz has gone down, Trey McBride has gone 26 on 291 yards and a touchdown at an elite 29.4% target share. Like 30% target share is crazy for a tight end.
No, it's insane. I mean, that's top tier wide receiver numbers, right? Like in terms of just targets, the type of looks he's getting from a quarterback, and the fact that Trey McBride is getting these, we knew the type of prospect that he was coming into, coming out of college, going into the Arizona Cardinals. But Zach Ertz was always there, and so it's awesome to see him really be able to, flourish when he gets the opportunities. It's
Mm-hmm.
happening like we thought it would. We were just waiting on it, and man, I heard last week some people say league winner. I was kind of hesitant to a statement that strong, but it's looking like,
Well,
I'm
I
still
don't,
not gonna say it, but he's gonna be a
I'll
big
say it.
factor in a lot of
I
championships.
don't. I'll say it. I don't mind. Like the idea of a league winner is not just necessarily someone that like we're not gonna be like Tyreek Hill league winner. Like a league winner is somewhere where you barely paid any capital for, right? Like you picked them up off the waiver wires. You didn't have to do anything, and they could return. It's the same thing as a buy low and a sell high. If you buy low on someone and they happen to turn out, let's say you buy on Bijan or Tony Pollard when they were super low, and then they end up, finishing as a high end RB1, which like is totally in the range of their outcomes
Totally.
based off of where they were drafted. League winner, right? Based off of the opportunity. So I think Trey McBride is definitely someone that you can consider a league winner, considering how many snaps he's playing and considering what he's going to be able to do when he's playing those snaps, and considering also what you paid for him, right? But we
Totally.
got a lot of things to talk about. Shout out to Josh Pilecki. I see him in YouTube. Sam Wagman said this is the most backwards hat podcast I've ever seen. No, it's the Caps On podcast. Now, Rivs, hey, congratulations on clinching a playoff spot in your league.
Oh yeah.
Um, I got 2 good leagues. One league, I'm officially 28% chance to make the playoffs, which is just tough because I got Tyreek, Diggs, Mahomes, Achan, Aaron Jones obviously went down, Ridley, Javante. It's been tough in this one. Josh Plucky said, my Justin Fields and Calvin Ridley for Waddle trade ain't looking too nice right now. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's definitely a tough one. But hey, you can't really look at quarterbacks because quarterbacks have the easiest chance at scoring points. But let's jump right into it. Felipe, A massive thing happened this morning that I want to talk about. A massive thing that I did not expect to happen. A massive thing that has not happened since we were in World War II. World War
That's
II.
and
Do you know
a
what
couple
happened?
things. Well, Matt Canada getting fired, the Pittsburgh offense all of a sudden has relevance. Yeah.
Woo!
Hey man,
Crazy.
a couple things we've been talking about that hasn't happened in a long time. The Lions 8-2 since the first time since like JFK, and then now you got Matt Canada. So I think a lot of things. I mean, as these trends are occurring, there might be more things that haven't happened in 80 years, whatever the fuck that is. I can't do the math. 60 years.
A lot.
Yeah,
It's a long time. It's a long
yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'll say it right now. Every single person on this Steelers offense is a little bit more valuable than they were earlier
Couldn't agree
today, right?
more.
Slash last night. Like any time this season we were talking about this Steelers offense, we always talked about how they're just held back by Matt Canada, and particularly the receivers, because Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, they get theirs. They're
Yep.
getting their carries and stuff like that, and they're doing what they can. But the receivers are just so held back. And I think they've also been held back by Kenny Pickett. But
Totally.
Matt Canada was a huge part of that. And we've always talked about putting quarterbacks in a situation to have success. Canada wasn't doing that. So I think, Pickett definitely trends up a bit, but especially those receivers, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give, even without knowing what's going to happen. We've always just said the ceiling is capped with Matt Canada running, calling plays for that offense.
Yeah.
So I think naturally you can uptick all of them. Now, to what extent, I don't know. Like, for example, we're going to talk about Jalen Warren. Jalen Warren, I feel like, is someone that he's slightly outside those top 24 running backs, but then again, kind of can slot in as like a low end RB2 if you need to start him, if that makes sense. Like, he has upside. He's just not seeing the volume. It does feel very similar to, and I think so many people pointed out that this was a Tony Pollard-Zeke relationship before the season started, and it took a long time. And obviously in the back half of the season, Jalen Warren or Tony Pollard of last year ended up being like the RB4, I think it was.
Yeah.
So Jalen Warren is someone that like can be that guy. We're obviously going to talk about him, but was the RB2 this week, So I think naturally you're going to all these Steelers players are trending up. But you got to be happy if you have George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, if you have Najee. Even I feel like Najee is someone that like I'm not going out and getting Najee, but if I just lost Aaron Jones and I'm running thin, given what Najee Harris's comments were, given what Jalen Warren's volume is going to look like potentially after considering that he only had one carry after that 74-yard touchdown run, and he's probably going to see more. I wouldn't even mind being like throwing out an offer for Najee if I can buy him for pennies on the dollar. He's going to score a touchdown, and the running backs are so thin right now. I'm not saying I want Najee. I'm just saying I think naturally there's an uptick and trending upward type motion for like everyone in that Steelers offense.
I totally agree with Najee though, and I said this about Najee last week. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember that? Do you have a good memory? I said I
don't
Najee.
have a good memory. You know that. I actually have
I like Najee. Like you got to understand what Najee. You're not getting what he once was. Like you're not getting that back end RB1, but you're getting a guy that most are just throwing away right now. Most don't even care about. They think he's fucking trash because you got Jalen Warren getting carries and getting touches and doing well with those touches. Najee's been making the most of his as well. And so I think if your trade deadline is this week, Najee's somebody I'm trying to get for the cheap. I'm trying to get him on the low. And I would add him to my running back rotation, right, on a week-to-week basis. You might not start him every single week. You probably will lean towards starting him most times, at least at the flex. But even if he's just insurance, I think it's a good play.
Yeah, I agree. It's just worth, seeing what the price is, especially with the running backs and everything. And I think if you're someone like myself who traded for Aaron Jones, we're going to go through some injuries and talk about the impact there. And obviously your guy Charbonnet coming up with Kenneth Walker going down. But naturally, I think you don't have much to offer. If Aaron Jones, unless was like your RB3 on your team, you're not going to have much to offer. So I don't mind going after Najee. But I want to go through some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. Obviously, I want to talk about all these guys that had a day to have a day. George Kittle, Tank Dell. Obviously, we talked about Jalen Warren, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, two of our guys. And then we're just because naturally when Justin Fields does something sexy, we need to talk about Justin Fields' sex appeal. So we're definitely finding a time to slip that one in. And then I want to go through some injury talk and what that means. So let's start with Calvin Ridley. Let's start with what does it mean for Calvin Ridley? He had the second most points in all of fantasy in week 11, 31.1 fantasy points. What are your thoughts on Calvin Ridley? Is this something to expect moving forward? Is this something that you just think is a blip on the radar? Are you trying to sell him? What do you thought? What are your thoughts on Ridley?
I I hate to say it, Adam.
Don't
I'm
say
so
it.
so
Don't say
so
it.
sorry.
Don't say it then.
I think it's a blip on the radar, bro. Look. It's not that he's not capable of doing this week after week. It's that we just haven't seen it all year. In fact, we've seen way more poor performances than we've seen great performances. But the one thing that I will give Ridley in like the positive look at this glass half full is that we've said it time and time again. If a player is underperforming and a team loses, they're gonna have to fix something. When they win and something great happens, they're probably gonna have to repeat that. So the Jags, they had a good record heading into last week, but they had some bad losses. They had a bad loss to the Texans. They had a bad loss the week before. They came out this week and fucking tore everything apart. Like they looked amazing, right? They tore that defense apart and really popped off. And so if they want to keep trending in that direction, maybe just keep doing what was working this past week, and Ridley was working. So I would say blip on the radar, but I'm not so. I think there's a chance that if they want to continue the success that they had, that they can keep that production to Ridley going.
So here's why I don't think it's a blip in the radar, and it's not because I'm incredibly biased towards Calvin Ridley. So I was looking at stats, and this is courtesy of Fantasy Pros. Calvin Ridley's 2023 splits with Zay Jones and without Zay Jones. So obviously Zay Jones did not play, in that middle. He started off the season, and then I think he got arrested. He was injured, obviously.
Yeah.
Without Zay Jones in 6 games, Calvin Ridley has 34 targets in total, 216 receiving yards in total, with an average of 36 receiving yards a game and 1 touchdown. So 6 games, 34 targets, 36 receiving yards per game, 1 touchdown. With Zay Jones, which is 4 games this season, he has 35 targets, 24 receptions, so 6 receptions a game, and averages 90 yards per game and has 3 touchdowns. In 3 of the 4 games that Zay Jones has played, he's had more than 100 receiving yards. So I don't know why it has to do with Zay Jones being there. I have zero clue, but the fact that Zay Jones is there and he's forced to I don't even know why. Like you're more of like a football guy, but it doesn't make sense to me that like if Zay Jones is out, naturally he's worse. With Zay Jones is with more talent, he's better. But if Zay Jones is healthy moving forward, I think you can consider him. Like, here's how I'd put Calvin Ridley. I think he's a wide receiver 3 right now with major upside, as we saw, because the targets have been there. Even without Zay Jones, like he's seen some targets, he just hasn't been able to convert at all. So I think he has major upside. If Zay Jones is in, to me, he's around that low end wide receiver 2, like very, very low end wide receiver 2, and could kind of be a high end wide receiver 2, considering what he just did. Because you have to kind of look at just what he's been able to do with Zay Jones versus without. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does. It totally does. And I'm with you, bro. Like, yeah, I am the smartest football head of all time, but even I can't determine like why is he doing this thing with Zay there. You would think that Doug Peterson, being a great offensive mind as he is, and just a good coach in general, that you could like if Zay is the key point in the key piece in the offense that frees up the other guys. Zay's not the most talented guy in the world. Why can't another guy step in and do the same thing and free up Ridley? So that's kind of weird to me. But hey, we follow trends. And that's a trend I like. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I like the wide receiver 2 range with Zay Jones there for Calvin Ridley with the ability to finish as a top 5 receiver, as we've seen.
Yeah, look, if in a 4-game sample size, and we're going to talk about it because I have a lot of stats here that talk about from week 7 to week 11, but in a 4-game sample size, I said, do you want a receiver that has 6 receptions a game and averages 90 receiving yards per game and has 3 touchdowns in those 4 games? Like, no matter what, you're going to be like, that guy sounds pretty damn good, right? Well, that's Calvin Ridley with Zay Jones. So I just think Calvin Ridley had a massive day. If Zay Jones is out, obviously his floor is so much lower. The ceiling could still be there, but the floor is so much lower. The floor is raised with Zay Jones there. So Shout out Calvin Ridley. Shout out, me and you, because we've been pounding the drum for Calvin Ridley. And from a talent perspective, he just hasn't had those opportunities. But with Zay, he's finally getting those opportunities. So I'm happy to see that. Your boy's next, though, bro. Tony Pollard finally found the end zone. The first time since week 1. Not only was it like, did he find the end zone? It was a good touchdown run. Like he ran. That was an angry run. He had 18 PPR points. He was the RB12 on the week, 12 carries, 61 yards. What are your thoughts on your boy Tony Pollard?
Boy looked explosive, man. Like you
said,
it's the style. It's the style. Like sometimes when I look at a running back who might be getting a lot of fantasy points or whatever it is. Like, it could be a lot of receptions. It could be like when you see him play, it doesn't look that great, but then they get the point. Like Joe Mixon, I feel like he'll have his 20-point game, and I'm like, I was not impressed watching him whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's okay. You like the points. But with Tony Pollard, we've been worried about just his efficiency. Like that's what's been gone this year. Last year he was hella efficient on minimal touches, and he was doing great. This year you give him more touches, and his efficiency wasn't there. He just wasn't doing anything with it. So the fact that obviously we saw the uptick this week, but not only did we see that wasn't just volume. It was he looked good on those touches. He looked good on those carries. The touchdown run he had, you're right. It was an angry run. Ran and do it over there, like broke like 3 tackles, ran and do it over to get into the goal line. It was impressive, man. And so that made me feel good about Pollard for this week. Obviously, that was against the Panthers. You have some tougher matchups going forward, but I do feel better about him than I did in the past. Like I feel more comfortable starting him week over week.
Well, I think look, I feel like we got into so many arguments back and forth like over the last couple of weeks on the pod, especially when we had Scotty the King come on and stuff, and we kept saying like Tony Pollard, it just has felt more unlucky than actually like him be like, yes, he's been less efficient, and I understand that. But at the same time, like there still has been opportunities. He's been stuffed at the goal line. He's still going to get opportunities. And then naturally all year, the Cowboys have either blown out teams or been blown out. It's never really been close games. And in those close games, he's had the volume that we would want to see from an RB1. So naturally, this was going to come at some point. And you like to see it against a Panthers team. Obviously, you don't want to overreact and be like, well, this is what you can expect moving forward. But I do think 12 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown is something easily that he can do week over week. That's not that crazy, right? Especially in the type of high-powered offense that the Cowboys run. So the one problem I'll say with Tony Pollard is like in blowouts, his volume decreases and they just get Rico Dowdle involved, right? So I don't know what Rico Dowdle's injury was, right? He got hurt or he's been hurt.
Nah, he was playing last week.
He played?
I'm not sure. Yeah, he played. Pollard he just made the most of his touches. I mean, that's really what it came down to. I don't know if what Dowdle's outlook is. I didn't even know he was really nursing an injury.
Yeah, they didn't practice yesterday. Rico Dowdle didn't practice yesterday. He suffered an injury in Saturday's practice, it looks like. Yeah, I agree. I think, look, low-end RB1 against the Commanders, if it's a blowout, no matter what, you're starting Tony Pollard. I still consider Tony Pollard someone you want to buy low on if this is the last week. Send an offer. I think better days are ahead for Tony Pollard. So hopefully you've been listening to the pod, and hopefully you bought low on him like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago.
Facts.
But we talked about Jaylen Warren, and this is a crazy thing to me that Jaylen Warren he reminds me a little bit of like, I don't want to say Achane, right? But Achane has become this like example, this case study of what a talented running back can do with little volume, right? Jaylen Warren going for 9 carries on 129 yards, 74-yard touchdown run. Insane. Like he is the more explosive back. I don't know. We touched on it briefly. I don't know if I consider Jaylen Warren someone that I like. I guess you have to start him, but only if I have no one else, right? Like I'm not going to start him over a Tony Pollard who we were just talking about, right? Given that his explosion games have been more recently. What are your thoughts on Jaylen Warren moving forward?
I think he's a must start. I mean, I'm starting him week over week.
Well, it depends who you have. It depends. I think like naturally you're going to start him, especially given the offense. But like, it just
I get that. So with Tony Pollard, I think it's good that you mentioned Tony. And Tony, I mean, you mentioned Achane, but Pollard was the original guy, right? Pollard was the guy last year that was making the most at a little. So it's funny we were talking about him just now and into that transition. So great job by you there. But I think the comparison is good with Pollard, like in terms of where he kind of lines up. I don't necessarily know who I have like higher in any given week. I mean, I trust Warren to get his because he makes the most of his touches. So I think it just comes down to like you're probably starting him, whether it's at your RB2 or your flex. You're going to want to put Jaylen Warren in because you don't want to miss out on a 25-point week. Like,
that I agree with.
You just can't have that. And so that's kind of where I'm at with him. Same with Pollard, where, you know, he really started off as an RB1 this year, as we thought he would be, fell down to RB2 and really started teetering in that flex range. I think Jaylen Warren is there.
I think he's in that flex range. That I agree with. Like, I'm not putting him into like my RB2 slot unless I have to. It's kind of what I was more so alluding to. Since week 8, though, Jalen Warren is the RB9 in a full PPR league. So,
There you go.
like you said, he's made the most of his touches. I get it if you like. I understand not wanting to bench him, right? Like he also feels like trade bait potentially, but yeah, I get it. Keep him in your flex, in that flex range, but I'm not replacing him and overreacting as much to this. If I have a Brian Robinson, like now granted this is like one other guy, but Brian Robinson or Joe Mixon, I probably am not starting Jalen Warren just because I know the volume will be there for those types of guys. Is that
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm getting at. Let's move into two other guys before we talk about our Lord and Savior Justin Fields. Tank Dell, wide receiver 3 on the week. This dude has been pure hooper hours, I should say.
I like Hooper House better.
Yeah, dude. I'm tired. All right.
Hooper House.
He's to me like Tank Dell is. He's a wide receiver 2 with major upside. Like I get it. I don't think you can put him in that wide receiver 3 category. So what are your thoughts on that? Like for me, he just feels like a guy that every week over week has the upside. Like the volume, he's getting like 5 to 7 receptions and making the most of it. He's scoring. Like, what are your thoughts on Tank Dell?
Yeah, I think he had 8 targets this week. I think I saw it a couple days ago. It was around that range. Nico. Hey, look, here's the thing. When him and Nico are both playing, they're gonna get similar. They're gonna get similar target share. But this dude Tank Dell he's an explosive play waiting to happen, bro. I don't know if he's in that steady wide receiver 2 range yet. I don't know if I would put him there just because I don't know if he's going to do that week after week after week. But he's one of those guys where I do want to start because he can give me 30. And so it's with him, it's like one of those where it's like I don't know what to do. If I have a guy like Mike Evans who gives me a really safe floor, who's going to give me 15 probably every single week, or I have Tank Dell, I'm probably between like wide receiver 2 and the flex range with these guys. And it's just one of those weeks. Like, do you want to go all out and risk it to go boom? But then you also could bust as well. So I think I'm kind of there with Tank Dell. I don't know if I'm consistent wide receiver 2 yet.
Like, here's my thing though, is like, since week 7, Tank Dell is the wide receiver 7 in a full PPR league. And that's 3 consistent weeks, right? Week 8, right. Or week 9, week 10, and week 11. Very similar to Jalen Warren. The difference between a Jalen Warren and a Tank Dell is Tank Dell's at least been seeing those targets. Even, like he was hurt. I think it was in week 6. Week 7, he had the bye. But at least Tank Dell is seeing some targets. And so that's why I feel like I could put him in that that low-end wide receiver 2 category, because it doesn't look like this offense is going to slow down anytime soon. Like CJ Stroud is going to throw the ball 25 to 35 times a game. And that's why I think naturally Tank Dell is going to be a beneficiary of that. So I don't mind. Like, here's how I put it, right? Ridley feels more steady in that wide receiver 3 because of because of the lack of consistency. Tank Dell's had some consistency, right? And therefore I would put him in that low end with high end upside. He's just looked good, bro. Week 7, to be the wide receiver 7 since week 7, again, another potential league winner, considering where you got him, considering that he was likely picked up off the waiver wires in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, putting on for all the small guys out there, man. Shout out.
One last guy, George Kittle. I mean, we got to show love. Tight end 2 since week 7. Guy, he had 22.9 fantasy points. Like, George Kittle is someone that every single week I'm like, use him as trade bait, but then like finds a way to have 4 to 6 receptions for like 80 yards. Like, what do you make of George Kittle? Is it like I started him in my flex this week?
Yeah, he's been surprising me because I'm just like you. I'm like, get rid of this guy while he's popping off because you're going to get some duds from him. Like, it's not that he's not one of the most talented tight ends in the league, but it's just that often so many mouths to feed. We've seen him on multiple occasions do nothing, but then also we've seen him pop off. It's just a matter of him doing it consistently, and it seems like he's been doing that. It's not him just popping off on like 3 receptions where he takes 1 for 70 yards and now he has a big day. Like this past week, I think he caught 8 receptions out of 9 targets. So he's peppered, and that makes me feel good. But I would still say, if this is your trade deadline week, you got to get, you got to make your trades now. I would still try to get rid of Kittle just because, like, I like what he's been doing and I like that he's providing me that. But if I can go get guys that we talked about right at the top of this show, Dalton Kincaid or Trey McBride, I
Mm,
know I'm going to safe floor with those guys, and they still could pop off. I think their ceiling is similar to Kittle's, but they have a safer floor. Their names are not as big as Kittle's, though. So if I would try to get Kittle, trade Kittle to the guy that has a Kincaid or a McBride and get somebody with McBride or Kittle, right? Like get some extra insurance at running back or receiver. That's what I would try to do right now.
totally. I mean, again, very similar issue. I have Dalton Kincaid and George Kittle. I'm going to try and do the same thing. I think naturally, like, I don't mind if you have to keep George Kittle. Just so many mouths to feed. Naturally, it's going to be hard to trust that type of volume, but he's seen it. So we got to give credit where credit is due. Let's talk about Justin Fields. Let's talk about a guy that, man, I think this was his first game on the year that he went over 100 rushing yards.
Yeah, we saw that a lot last year, which, I mean, that's part of why we loved him so much as a fantasy quarterback this year, but I didn't mind him rushing less this year. I mean, obviously you talk about longevity with Justin Fields and everything like that, but good to see him get those rushing yards up. He looked right back, and that dime he threw to DJ Moore for the touchdown, that was beautiful. And we knew that connection was hot. Like we'd seen him before he got hurt. That connection, he had a perfect passer rating when he was connecting with DJ Moore early this year before the injury. And so with Justin Fields, it's just a matter of let's see more, like let's see that consistently, right? And we started to see it before the injury. The fact that the Bears lost this game shows you everything you need to know about the Bears. Justin Fields is doing what he can. DJ Moore's finally back with Justin Fields, as we said. We said DJ Moore's value was probably pretty low last week. You probably get him for a trade on low value.
Yep.
And both of these guys popped off. The Bears still lost. I think, look, the thing with Justin Fields is that you have to start him. If you have him, you have to start him. I know, like, you've seen some duds early this year, but you've seen enough highs from him too that, man, like, he's going to win you certain weeks by himself. He's going to get you a 40-point week this year. I don't know what your week is going to be, but he's going to get you that. And so it's just good to see him back. And I feel for him that he's still losing these games where he's popping off. It's really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the way I'd kind of put it, he's in that mid-range QB1 territory, but he has high-end upside to be in that top 4 to 5 QB1 range, right? Yeah, like this guy, he had a season high 33% of the team designed rushing attempts. We haven't seen that type of Justin Fields since last year. Still QB8 on the week. No matter what, you got to be happy about Justin Fields. Felix in the comments on YouTube said he lost Joe Burrow. He has the opportunity to choose Josh Dobbs or Justin Fields. Which do you recommend?
I recommend Justin Fields. I want the ceiling, bro. You play this game to win a championship, right? We're not playing to get fucking 3rd, 4th place, right? Josh Dobbs is going to be okay. He's going to be good. He'll be serviceable for sure. Now, if your team is fucking loaded and you'd rather go with the serviceable quarterback that can get you a guaranteed like 17, a week, that's cool. But Justin Fields will literally win you weeks by himself, like we just said. Your team could shit the bed that week. Guys just underperform, don't get targets like we've seen from certain superstars this year and every year. But Justin Fields will win you that week because he'll go off for 30 plus. And so I'd rather have Justin Fields. I just would rather have the higher ceiling.
I agree. I think you got to go with Justin Fields. Like, Josh Dobbs is a fun story and whatnot, but Justin Fields is the better fantasy QB, the better fantasy talent. If it's literally you could take one or the other, I'm taking Justin Fields. But you mentioned superstar. You mentioned someone that could win you some weeks. This guy has definitely won people a lot of weeks. Since week 7, Jahmyr Gibbs. Like, this dude has been going crazy. This guy is someone like Jahmyr Gibbs is someone to me, like, he had another amazing game, but he's like, he has RB2 volume, but he's like RB1 value. Does that make sense? Like, the volume that he's getting is not equivalent to, it's another Achane example, right? But I would trust Gibbs far more than Achane, especially that Achane is nursing this knee injury. But since week 7, Jahmyr Gibbs is the RB1. The RB1 over guys like Rachaad White, Gus Edwards, CMC, Alvin Kamara. Like, he has 105 fantasy points, and he already had his bye, which is crazy to me. So he's had at least 95 total yards and a touchdown in each of the last 4 games. I wish I had Jahmyr Gibbs on my team. Let's just call it what it is.
It's insane. I mean, we thought. Look, I was still high on Gibbs, even with Montgomery coming back. But a lot of people were worried about that. Montgomery coming back going to take more of the carries and take away from Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, look, dude, this guy's making the most of his touches. He looks like he's settled into this NFL, bro. Like he settled into this league of it's obviously harder. Like, there's a transition from college to the NFL. And what we've seen in college was that he was that home run threat that he could do, he could do it all. And that's why he was a top 12 pick or whatever he was for the Lions. They're finally utilizing him like that. They're putting him in positions to score. He's making the most out of those carries. He's breaking tackles. The worry that, he was too small to play in this league, like that's gone. And he's again, I think the biggest thing is that he's able to produce even with Montgomery back. So I love Gibbs. You're getting the return that you got on him right now. So I don't know if this
Finally.
too much to analyze right there.
Twist on YouTube said running backs are scarce in his league. He's stuck between starting Ramondre Stevenson or Jalen Warren. I have Kyron back this week. What would y'all recommend? I actually think I go Ramondre. I just know that he's going to get the volume, but I also don't know because Matt Canada's now gone. I don't know exactly how that's going to work. That's a tough one. What are you doing?
I think I'm going Warren, man. I've seen enough the past few weeks of him just popping off consistently to think that he can do it again on a weekly basis. So I would go Warren week 1, like this upcoming week, to see, and you could evaluate from there.
I don't even mind if you bench Kyron, right? Like coming back may not get the lion's share that he once had. What Jalen Warren can do, and also what Ramondre can do. So I don't know if I'm trusting Kyron just yet. It's a tough one, though. It's a tough one. We're obviously split on it. Before we begin wrapping up, obviously, as a reminder, if you want to bet on anything in terms of DFS or just, with any sports book, make sure to go to gameday.com/promotions or go to the link in our bio. We have a nice little promo running with FanDuel at the moment, so make sure to check that out. Let's jump into some injury talk. Obviously, I want to start with my boy Devon Achane. Re-injured that MCL injury that put him on IR. They said that he wanted to come back, that McDaniel kept him out. What are your thoughts on Achane moving forward?
I mean, that sucks. That sucks that he re-injured the MCL. But do we know? I know he wanted to come back, but like, how serious is this? Do you know like any more than he's just re-injured?
I haven't seen, like, they said they have to wait till today. Mike McDaniel's comments yesterday were don't count him out to play Friday and don't count him in. Mike McDaniel does that dumb shit. So I think when it comes to Achane, my guess is he misses a week. Also, the Dolphins have aspirations to make a deep playoff run, so it wouldn't shock me if they kept him out. I don't think they put him on IR. Like, I don't think you could put someone on IR back-to-back without them being out for the year. Don't quote me on that. The way I'd handle the Achane situation is probably add Jeff Wilson if he is available. If Achane doesn't play, there's still no guarantee because even without Achane, Jeff Wilson wasn't doing much. But the thing is, Salvon Ahmed did get hurt. So I think naturally you add Jeff Wilson. If Achane does play, you obviously start Achane if he's healthy to play. I think it's as simple as that.
Totally. I don't think there's too much to add there. If Achane's on the field, he's one of the most explosive players in the league. You got to have him on. You saw what he did when he was healthy and playing. With that being said, obviously if you have Mostert, a little bit better if Achane's not there, but he's still going to do his thing. So I guess the only upwards trend, I mean, you mentioned Salvon Ahmed for sure. What's his name? Mostert as well, I would say.
Yeah. Felix on YouTube says, do you think they'll sit CeeDee Lamb this week? He's questionable with a possible ankle injury. I saw this morning that he's going to play. I think he's completely fine. I think it's just one of those like precautionaries. Like
nice.
At this point of the season, everyone's nursing some sort of injury. That's just how it works.
Right. And CeeDee's not going to miss a Thanksgiving game, bro. Like, that's one of the biggest games for Dallas, every year. And the past few years, they haven't been playing very well in that game. And so this year, they're going to have to come out and play against Washington. I think CeeDee plays, man. And look, he's been giving you crazy returns. So shout out to everybody that has CeeDee.
Let's talk about your boy, Zach Charbonnet. The time has come.
I'm excited. The time has come.
Go off. Go off, King.
I mean,
what are your thoughts? Kenneth Walker's oblique injury. What are your thoughts?
Bro, shout out to all my Dynasty guys out there. We all were depressed before we even had our rookie drafts, just because we get excited about good players. We got excited about Bijan Robinson, obviously. Like, we get excited about Jahmyr Gibbs and stuff like that. Like, these really good guys coming out. Zach Charbonnet was one of those guys. He was going to be a first-round pick in Dynasty rookie drafts, a mid-first-round pick, one of the third running back taken after Bijan and Gibbs. As soon as he went to Seattle and we knew he was going to have to split carries with Kenneth Walker, now it was like, fuck, dude, he fell all the way to the second round in some drafts. And at most drafts, really. I took him in the middle of the second round in my rookie draft. And all because he was going to have to split carries with Kenneth Walker. And even still, because he's a better pass catcher, because he's a better pass blocker than Kenneth Walker, we knew he would have some standalone value. He was going to get his. And we did see that, right? Like, over the past few weeks before the Kenneth Walker injury, he started to trend upwards. He started getting a better snap count than Kenneth Walker. Obviously, receiving target share than him, like route participation, everything Charbonnet was actually outpacing Kenneth Walker, especially when you start thinking about like how is this going to trend towards the end of the season when you're in the fantasy playoffs. Well, now those numbers just skyrocket when Kenneth Walker's not even there. He's hurt. So Charbonnet was trending towards like, look, if you're in a pinch, you could start him at your flex. You'd probably be okay. Like you would be all right starting him at your flex. Now he's an RB2. Like he's flat out an RB2. He's going to get the volume, and he's going to not only the volume, but he's going to get the volume that you like seeing from a running back, that like super valuable volume, which is in the receiving game and goal line work as well. So I'm super high on him. The only thing about Charbonnet is that he does have a tough schedule going forward. He plays the Niners. I don't have the schedule out in front of me right now, but he's got a tough schedule going forward. It's not too favorable, but I think just the volume is going to make him RB2.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a solid RB2. My dog is going crazy right now. So
yeah, I was like, yo, is he crying about Charbonnet or?
No, I think she's crying about Kenneth Walker because Kenneth Walker oblique injury could be anywhere from like 1 to 4 weeks. All right, Coda. But yeah, I think with Zach Charbonnet naturally solid RB2 against a good matchup with the 49ers, but he's going to see an every down role, and no matter what, you want to put that type of person in your lineup. I see a question on YouTube. Twist says, do you guys know anything about Kupp injury? I think it's a good time to talk about Cooper Kupp. It said day-to-day with an ankle injury. He was stepped on by a teammate while blocking. We gotta see what like his practice looks like, right, over these next couple of days. I think naturally that'll give us more of an idea of if he plays or not. My guess is he does play. Like I don't think it was like too serious. He did look like he's in pain, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Cooper Kupp, yeah. I mean, it sucks because you already had to deal with it. You drafted him knowing that like I'm gonna miss a few weeks from him in the beginning of the season. He's gonna come back. I don't know. I mean, if he plays, I'm starting him every week. If he doesn't, like obviously sucks, especially heading towards the end where you're really solidifying playoff position right now. But I don't have too much other than that. But I do. Tommy, he has a question, so I do want to answer that. But he says Tank Dell or Mike Evans, which is literally the comparison I made earlier, right? I was like, if Tank Dell's in that position where I don't know if I'm starting him or Mike Evans, who has a safer floor, I don't have that predicament. I have Mike Evans, and I was dealing with something kind of like that when I had Nico Collins before I traded him. But if you're going Dell or Mike Evans, like, it depends. I think Mike Evans is going to get you a good like 12 to 15 a week. He could get you more. He could get you 25. Like we know that. But Tank Dell for sure has a better chance of booming. I would probably on a week to week. If I feel pretty good about the matchup, I would go Mike Evans. But if I need to play some hero ball and I'm playing an opponent that's just like a heavyweight and is going to outmatch me, then I'm probably going to go Tank Dell.
I think you nailed it on the head. I think that's the exact same way to kind of look at it. Josh Pilecki says, "Oh, my dog is going wild listening to your dog. She's just crying for attention." I totally agree with that. Also, Jorge says thoughts on that Aaron Jones injury. Aaron Jones was on our list that we were going to talk about. The injury looked worse than it actually was. I think just by like reading reports, they said they're still waiting like on an MRI to see results. But it could be anywhere from like 2 to 4 weeks. I'm not relying on Aaron Jones. He wasn't good anyways while he was playing. I'm also not sitting there being like AJ Dillon's going to be someone that I want tremendously in my lineups. Like if you don't have anyone else, but he wasn't good in the times that Aaron Jones was out. So I think we just got to wait and see what that MRI says. It does feel like it's going to be like a 2 to 4 week injury. But let's see what else. Jalen Waddle or Jeff Wilson at the flex. I think you got to go Jalen Waddle, says Matt. And then Tommy also asked after that Dell or Mike Evans question, who should he pick up on waivers, JSN or George Pickens? I personally think I want to go George Pickens because I want to see what that offense looks like, without Matt Canada. I think that the upside's there with George Pickens. So that's kind of where I would go.
Agree. JSN is getting more volume as the weeks go by. But the thing with him is his average depth of target for my fantasy nerds out there actually is the lowest out of any first round pick in NFL history or some shit like that. Like something like that, like crazy. Like he's not getting much depth.
I didn't even know that. God damn.
Yeah, it's insane. So they're talking about how he could be a bust. Now, I'm not going to say Jason is a bust, particularly because I drafted him in my rookie draft for Dynasty. So I like him and I'm hoping for him. But I do think George Pickens gives you more upside. So I'll go Pickens.
Yeah, I also think with JSN, like the first 6 weeks, it's like he wasn't playing. He was nursing a hand injury. Like we forget that he had surgery. So I don't think it's a fair example or stat to kind of bring up because JSN, it's not like JSN's been playing a ton, obviously. Right. So, but yeah, I think that's a good place to like stop it. It's all the notes that we have for today. It's been a 40-minute episode. Tomorrow with Thanksgiving, obviously being Thursday, we have a special Thanksgiving episode that we recorded. Little Thanksgiving games, little fraud or not from Jack at Thanksgiving, and we did a predictions for the Thanksgiving game. So make sure to tune into that. That'll drop tomorrow. Thursday, we're not going to do it live for like buy lows and sell highs, just because Thanksgiving and everyone should enjoy it. We'll probably do some sort of live where we just like are watching the first quarter of the Lions game. So make sure to tune into that. We can answer some fantasy questions there. I think that'll be fun. And then Friday, we have our natural predictions episode to come out. Shout out myself, shameless plug. Your boy went 12-1 in the predictions last week, so I'm kind of nice like that. Yep.
Hell yeah, dude. You're a dog, man. I gotta get back.
And make sure to follow us on all of our socials. Make sure to go listen to the full, if you're just popping in and out, you want to hear more fantasy episodes, you want to hear more arguments, more conversations, make sure to go to the link in our bio. Go listen to our audio episodes or go to YouTube or anywhere, depending on where you're finding us. I'm going to go save my dog right now because she's freaking out.
I am so worried for you, bro. Go do that. Go take care of your dog.
Felipe, words of wisdom on this Tuesday recaps episode to recap our recap episode.
Last week it was do everything you can to go get Trey McBride. Now go do everything you can to go get Zach Charbonnet, man. The fucking hero, the greatest running back in NFL history. You're about to witness it.
Let's go. All right. We'll see you tomorrow for our Cafeteria Thanksgiving episode.
Peace.